Hello, everyone, and welcome to Emotional Health Coaching with Deaver. Today, I am excited to have an interview with the beautiful Dr. Somer Nicole. First, I'll tell you a little bit about me, just in case you're coming upon this video accidentally on YouTube. I'm an emotional health coach specializing in emotional healing, which means I help people identify, process, and release challenging emotions. And my guest this evening is Dr. Somer Nicole, and I am so excited to be talking to you today. Somer, I had the pleasure of meeting you in person in Kauai more than a year ago and attending a beautiful, wonderful yoga practice that really helped me process a lot of emotions. In that moment, I remember coming to you and telling you what a special experience that was for me. And so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you today. And I'll just share a little bit about Somer. She is a doctor of physical therapy specializing in craniosacral therapy and somato-emotional release, which is the most exciting part of knowing you for me, because working with emotions so much, I know, talking about emotions and processing them through a mental aspect is important, but also without processing emotions through the body, all of this talk and all of this thinking is really just a part of it. So this is what I'd like to talk to you about tonight. I recently saw one of your videos about releasing anger. So I'd love to start with just, if you'd be willing to share a little bit about your experience with releasing emotions through the body.
Yeah, well, my doctor is in physical therapy. And so after about 3.5 years of being a traditional kind of orthopedic physical therapist, what I realized very quickly is that people's issues are not just physical, that there's this huge, psycho-emotional component to it. And so that's what made me go into studying craniosacral therapy and somato-emotional release, which is one part of craniosacral therapy. But yeah, now that I've seen, thousands of clients working with them using this technique called somato-emotional release. Soma means body, so that term just means releasing emotions that are stored in the physical body. It's over and over and over again. I see that, like, emotions, no matter what the emotion is, sadness, anger, fear, whatever it is, can literally be stored anywhere in the body. And there's always an emotional component to someone's physical pain. And so, I've had so many sessions now that, like, kind of nothing seems to surprise me anymore, as far as like what comes out of people and what people are holding in their body. And it's really interesting because people, it's either with somato-emotional release, they'll go one of two ways. The psyche will give them an image to work with, and that image represents one part of the subconscious mind. Or they're given, they remember some sort of memory, right, that needs to be resolved, some sort of unresolved childhood memory. And so it's just using the physical body to access the subconscious mind. And as like Dr. Joe Dispenza always says, the body is the unconscious mind. So we just use that to access the emotions.
I love that so much. So for our viewers who might be wondering, wait, do I have emotions stored in my body? Is there a symptom or a way that we can tell that that's happening for us, and that, it's recommended to go see someone like you, for instance?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because some people are aware of the suppressed emotions they have in the body, right? And then some people are completely unaware of it. And if you're operating from old patterns and you keep seeing the same things like show up in your life, and because you're operating from, they say, like, within say your 5-year-old or your 8-year-old, when you were 8 years old, you had some sort of childhood trauma, right? That part of yourself is emotionally frozen in time. And so you literally just react and respond to people from that emotionally frozen place. And so that's one way, is that if you kind of are just, you see yourself in different patterns, or start showing the same pattern over and over again. And then the other way is really just listening to the physical body, because, and as a physical therapist, that's what I saw, and what made me want to go study more of this type of work is because, people will come in and no mechanism of injury, sort of a gradual onset of physical pain or discomfort in the body. And then when you start asking them, like, what does that feel like? the adjectives that they use to describe are emotional adjectives, I have a knot in my gut, or it feels like I have a wall over my heart, they'll say, and like very like emotionally focused terms. And so that's another way too, you use it by emotional sensations. You can use it by whatever patterns you see, showing up in your life over time. And then really just what does your physical body feel like? Like what is your physical body saying to you? And I feel like this work really just, it's like the opposite of dissociation being like mentally checking out, right? This is like going into the body and into the physical or emotional pain or discomfort in order to get the stuck energy to move.
Wow, that's exciting. It's just like, I'm like, okay, I have 100 more questions for you. I think I want to take it one step back. And I know I work with a lot of male clients, and for some reason, for women, it's a little bit easier for us to identify our emotions, maybe because society allows us to be emotional. It's kind of a thing that women, and emotions are associated. So I work with men who sometimes I'll be like, well, how does that feel? And they won't be able to identify. They'll say, it doesn't feel like anything. I don't feel anything. So how do you recommend that someone who maybe is not familiar with their body, has maybe not had a practice of slowing down and really checking in, how do we begin? What's the first step into becoming more intimate with ourselves and with the sensations in our body, and maybe finding some of those words, like you said, oh, I feel weight on my chest, or I feel tingling in my arms.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the first steps in beginning this practice of becoming more aware of what's happening for us?
Well, it's interesting because I just had a client the other day it was her very first somato emotional release session. She was very nervous because she was like, I don't know where this is going to go, kind of afraid of what may or may not come up, but was suffering from a lot of anxiety. And she says that when she gets home from work every day, has all this anxiety, and we were going to do our session about an hour after she got home from work. And so what I told her, after kind of giving her my kind of sum up of what somato emotional release is, I told her, like, when you get done from working, get off your phone, get off your computer, go for a walk, get into your body, a bike ride, go put your feet in the grass or whatever, go for a beach walk if you're near the beach, or walk in the mountains, whatever it is, to actually physically get into your body. Because you can think of like that saying, your energy goes where your energy flows where your attention goes, right? So our attention is on these little devices all day long, right? And so our energy is projected out. And so just getting people to disconnect from Wi-Fi is so big, because they begin to draw their energy back into the physical body. And I feel like that's sort of like something that's being lost in our culture, right? From all of the technology and the overstimulation. But it's also a big reason I think why people have a lot of anxiety, is because there's this quick fix like stimulation, and we're training our brains to always need that, And so my biggest thing for people is just to tell them to stop, like disconnect from technology, get into nature, get quiet, like no music, no nothing, and just start to listen to your body, and like really simple stuff.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is, when I do go on that walk, don't bring the headphones, don't bring the phone, just bring the body.
Yeah, and breathe.
And that's going to be challenging for some people who are used to, let me put my headphones in, let me just put my playlist and just check out, and automatically go for a run or for a walk. That first step might be a little bit uncomfortable, to be like, what? I'm on the street with nothing to distract me.
Yeah.
So no, but
exercise can be an addiction too. Exercise can totally be an addiction, I feel like. And so I feel like if people can't sit still for meditation, or just mindfulness or whatever you want to call it, yeah, go and walk and do it. At least you're moving energy.
What I loved about what you said was that idea of being outwardly focused so much that we forget to take the moment and focus inwardly as well. Thank you for that. And just to close our little vignette, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about anger. I've really loved your video. And y'all, if you want to see amazing videos about getting in touch with your body and processing emotions through your body, I recommend that you subscribe to Somer's YouTube channel. And what's your handle for that?
It's Dr. Somer Nicole, Somer, and then Nicole.
Perfect. All right, so tell us a little bit about anger, how anger may show up in our body, and how I may have a chance to release it through my body.
Anger, I was telling you before, is one of my favorite emotions to talk about, because for me personally, anger was really unconscious for a really long time. It was, I'd had different healers or intuitives tell me like it was in there, but I just couldn't feel it. I was like, I'm a pretty positive, happy person. I just didn't feel it. And so it was when someone asked me one time, they said, what's your primary emotional reaction to things? And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, oh, well, it's definitely, at that time, it was definitely, it was frustration. I was like, because internally, I made this sound out like, ugh, like, ugh, like I would just be frustrated. And then they were like, yeah, that's anger. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, I have a lot of it then, and so studying Kundalini yoga, there's kriyas, practices, exercises, movements, breath, and meditations that are specific to releasing anger in the body. In many traditions, they say anger sits in the liver, and the liver is kind of here, like underneath the right rib cage. So in many traditions, they say anger and resentment sits there. I think for a lot of people, it's kind of easy when you can think like, oh, I'm angry at that person, but for me, it took a long time to see that it was self-directed anger, for not listening and for not listening to my intuition for so long, for ignoring my own needs, for giving away my power. It was a lot of self-directed anger. And I think that's why I just didn't see it for so long. Because I was like trying to think, who am I angry at and who am I holding resentment for, and that sort of thing. And so it wasn't until I was in one of the advanced somato emotional release classes, and the teacher had his elbow super deep right there in my solar plexus in that right side of my liver. And, it's like an old memory came up with my dad, and my little 8-year-old was just pissed. And then I finally felt it. And so what was really important for me personally, because that very first time having accessed it, was actually connecting it to my throat. And so anger, if it sits in the solar plexus, and the solar plexus goes like from here to here, right? Like the lowest part of your sternum to your belly button. So that's your power center. Solar plexus is all about your personal power. And so for me, because I had just sort of as a child, kind of was really reserved and didn't really I kind of just swallowed things down. I just kind of like to keep peace, because I didn't really agree with a lot of everything that was going on around me. I just sort of swallowed things down. And so for me personally, it was really important. I've seen this with a lot of clients, that it's really important that once you feel it, to actually connect it to your throat, and it's like, what does that sound like even? And I can remember like when the teacher was kind of coaxing me of like, what does that anger sound like? It was like, it was like, there was like 1% connection, from my power center to my throat. And they stayed with me, and I kind of was like, and it started to come out until it started to really was like a wail and like a scream and just full on rage, to be honest, came out. It was just so much in there. And I was really shocking, to be honest, whenever it first happened to me. It's like kind of shocking to the nervous system when you haven't let those sounds come out. And so, really simply, without going into specific Kundalini practices that you can do to release anger, punching bag is amazing. Getting a pillow and just beating the heck out of the bed or the wall with a pillow while making sounds like grunt and yell and whatever you need to do. Another one is those fun noodles, that you use in pools, and just whacking the hell out of a wall. So that's really good. I really like punching, because I feel like you can pull it up from the solar plexus, and then the heart chakra helps to transmute that energy. Hands are extensions of the heart, and then you're releasing it through the hands, right? So I really those are the easiest things that you can do without having any tools or, anything that you could use, where if you feel anger come up, do something where you're releasing it from the body rather than swallowing it down.
When I work with clients around anger, and there's a need for release as well, I try to encourage them to use this energy, because there's so much energy behind anger. I feel like it's one of the most explosive energies we have. And I encourage them to think about something where they could use that extra energy. Do you need to break down an old house? Do you need to carry some wood or throw something, whatever you need to do. You can use this energy. It doesn't have to be destructive. It can be actually helpful to you. It could be demolition day where you get to release all of your anger. And before we close, we're getting close. We got a couple more minutes. Really quickly, I think the most important part when it comes to anger is giving ourselves permission to feel it. When we think about the way the unspoken rules and spoken rules of our society, it's almost more allowed, more permissible for you to be sad and to cry than it is for you to be angry. Mm-hmm. Especially for us as women, if we cry and, you know, our friends are going to console us and try to be there for us, but if we're angry, everybody's out. Mm-hmm. And so we don't give ourselves permission to be angry. We don't give each other permission to be angry. We get scared by anger. And so all of this idea of releasing it sounds really cool, but sometimes I struggle with my clients to get them to that point where they can consider giving themselves permission to have this emotion. And it's such a core emotion, such a human basic emotion. So can you say a few words about getting to that point of permission?
Getting to the point of permission, giving yourself permission to just feel. Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with how you were raised and your belief systems around it. I know I was raised in the South in Florida, and it's like mind your Southern manners, you know, right, sort of thing. And so I know a lot of people have that old programming in the head. And so, yeah, I was just teaching a Kundalini Yoga emotional medicine retreat, and where we actually had a punching bag and we were holding it for each woman went around and we're punching it. And it is interesting. It's like sometimes people will stop themselves. Like they'll get to it and they'll feel it and they'll feel how intense it is. And then it's like it's so intense that they feel like they have to hold it in. And that's what's familiar to them is to hold back, right? So yeah, it's like, honestly, it's a flat out choice. And I think it's a lot to do with just the knowledge, the real knowledge that if you just keep swallowing it down, like in all of the times in your whole life that you swallowed it down, this manifests in your physical body as illness and disease and imbalances. And so I really think education of it is just really important, of just like, okay, yeah, like you have to mentally, you know, like I'm giving myself permission to feel, but then also just know the repercussions of not giving yourself permission to feel, the repercussions of, you know, just keep swallowing it down, is literally what creates cancer. You know, it's what creates like the worst diseases in the body. And so, yeah, I think knowledge about how emotions manifest in the body is really important. That's why I love sharing this information.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I feel like I could do this for another couple of hours. Let's do this again.
Okay.
I'm really grateful for your thoughts, and especially for your courage and your comfort in speaking about an emotion that usually doesn't have a very good rap in the world. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you all. And once again, if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Somer Nicole, please follow her on YouTube, and tell me a little bit more about you're on Facebook as well. Are you on Instagram?
Facebook is Somer Nicole, and then you can find me. My website is www.yogadoctors with the S on the end .tv, and you can find all my information there. And there's practices and meditations and breath work on there for common ailments for anyone who's interested.
And for more emotional health work and topics and videos and articles, go to emotionalhealthcoaching.com. Thank you all, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.